It's funny, and I was always taught to, avoid rock and roll and the whole drinking scene, and hanging out with people like that, and that's not what Christians did, because you'll sacrifice who you are as a person, and your morality will dip to their level, and I'm sure there's some truth to that, and it certainly depends on the perspective that you have going into it. And last year I had my 39th party in Ohio, where I lived for 12 years, and my wife invited a bunch of my friends, and every single one of them showed up, and it was cool. We had a good time. We just we ate. It was at a restaurant, and we talked and laughed a lot, and this year I was in Wisconsin for my 40th, and I wanted to host a party, and think about the different references in the Bible, and this guy threw a feast, or this guy threw a celebration, and I thought, what, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna throw a feast, and but I'm gonna call it an uncelebration. And so I was gonna invite everybody that I knew in Wisconsin, and I haven't spent a lot of time developing deep relationships here in Wisconsin. I've been significantly involved in multi-sport and triathlon, and that's a lot of hours, lonely hours on the bike or in the pool, and obviously with my job consulting, in the past 4 years I've spent more than 50% of my time on the road, and that makes it tough. But I just said, hey, I'll just invite everyone from Wisconsin, and so there's a split down the line. I'd say probably about 50% from the church that I've been attending for 5 years, and then 50% from other people I knew, either from my wife's work or outside of that, and then obviously some of my racing buddies. And it's funny because it's a very tough decision for me. One that people would certainly think it was stupid to spend this much time worrying or being concerned about it, and that was just a simple choice of to have alcohol or not have alcohol at the party. And here in Wisconsin, it's a beer capital of the U.S. certainly, and so I said, what, we'll buy some beer. We won't have hard liquor here, but that's completely normal. And the thing I wanted to do was I wanted to play all the top songs, number one songs of the year from '73 to 2013, covering my lifespan. And so when I wrote the invite up, I talked about having a DJ and playing songs, and I talked about having all types of drinks and goofball things, and we have a hot tub, so if people wanted to go in the hot tub, or I cooked a ton of food. We had food for everybody, and days later, just tons of food, and the night came for my party, and I'd say maybe 50% of the people showed up that I invited, and certainly a lot of people have things that they have to do, and there's a very interesting line in who attended and who didn't attend. And with the exception of one person, 0 people that I knew from the church came. Not one. One of them did have the decency to RSVP and let me know that they had something else going on that night, but no one else told me anything. didn't let me know. Um, when I saw them in church on Sunday after the party, they didn't mention it. Um, they avoided discussion with me, and I mean, typically they'll come up and they'll say stuff, and that just absolutely disappointed me. And it was with the exception of the Miller Lite and Coronas, music choice, it was exactly the same as any other Christian get-together I'd ever been. And I don't know if those are the two main reasons they didn't come, and if they thought that was out of control or what it was, but that was the missions field. That was the relationship establishing in order to make disciples. Several of those people my wife and I have been talking to for the past couple years about God and His importance in our lives, and the role that the Bible plays and how we guide ourselves. And when people you don't know show up from the world, and people that you do know that you've gone on trips with, that you spent time with, don't show up and don't let you know, you've got to ask yourself if something's broken. I guess for me, it's just step one in the rejection of the church against the way I believe and the way I think. I feel like God's been preparing me to deal with church rejection from the leaders. It's easy when it's far away, and I've done a couple of surveys several years ago to get thoughts, and overwhelmingly negative response from a random sampling of 1,000 evangelical pastors across the United States about the perspective and how whacked out it is and how crazy I am and how I obviously don't know what I'm talking about. And I certainly did church ministry, giving back for 20 plus years. I was never a full-time minister. I never went to seminary. I never was paid by my church to do work. And so, if those are all credentials that I need to hold to understand what it means. I've served as a deacon. I've served in the local role. I've served in a district capacity as a lay leader. It's certainly not for lack of qualifications or experience. It was a very hard decision for me to work outside the established church environment, because that environment, when you're an insider, is quite easy to build relationships in and get things done, to do things, but the impact is reduced. The growth rate is tremendously low. The amount of effort spent on patting ourselves on the back or looking at our awesome facilities, it's an embarrassing misstewardship of funds and time. And I know, because I was in it, and people may question, okay, well, where are you on your spiritual journey? And while I admit I'm not at the peak growth trajectory. Right now I certainly spend time, on a regular basis. This will be the, 20th consecutive year I've read through the Bible, and I do have very deep moments of introspection and reflection and prayer time or quiet time, or whatever you want to call it. And, so I don't think I'm off base. Past few years I've tried to get some things off the ground and get it going, and it's just been one obstacle after the next. And I think trying to operate within the framework that I thought I was supposed to operate in, but knew I knew I wasn't called to operate in. I felt bad for the pastor of my current church, because he tried to reach out to me so many times. I tried to reach out to him too, and figure out where to get involved, and just nothing felt right, and nothing clicked. And then when I decided what it is I wanted to do, I didn't feel like that was the right venue to pursue it. And I continue to give my tithes and offerings to the local church, and we certainly support missionaries when they come, and give money to that as well, and give money to those in need outside of the church. And that's not tax deductible. When you see someone who has a need, you give them money, or you get Christmas for them. There's nothing going on the W-2 as a tax deduction, and you're giving to those who really need it because they need it, and because you've been able to provide for that.